So thank you very much for all joining this evening. It's greatly appreciated, all of your time. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I think that we've all probably met on occasions. However, I don't know you all really well. So I'd just like to tell you about like my story and how I came to like this self-love journey. So basically, um, I was an extremely busy mother. I was a scientist. I had the ideal job, a 25-hour a week part-time term time position, two children at the time, and I basically was busy all day, every day, 7 days a week for the whole of my life. To the outside world, I had the perfect life, a happy family, children, work, was successful in my work as a scientist, but became increasingly unhappy and decided to pack everything in, retrain as an interior designer, and I moved to the south of France in 2004. So again, busy, 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 redoing a house, two small children, lots of different extracurricular clubs and all these types of things. So 24/7, I was busy. Had a third child, thought everything was still okay. I went up and down throughout my life, sort of feeling depressed and having some suicidal thoughts, but again, kept busy, kept going. And when I had my third child, he really did keep me going for 16 years. And then I got to the point where I really had to ask myself the question in January 2021, did I want to stay on this planet or didn't I? And it just so happened that Tim's video popped up on the screen whilst I was watching a golf video with my son. And I decided, well, I can give it one last shot and try doing his course. So I did. And for 6 weeks, I have to say, it was absolute hell doing that course. By that point in time, I got myself to the point where I wasn't sleeping properly. I very rarely ate. If I did eat, I would maybe eat a bar of chocolate or something like that and then skip meals instead. So I was abusing myself all the time, even on the most basic of things. But to the outside world, my life was absolutely tip top. Everybody thought that everything was fine. I never told anybody how I was feeling inside. Mm-hmm. And literally, I was a shell. To the outside world, I was fabulous, but to the inside, I was completely empty and dead. So doing that course with Tim, little by little, I slept, managed to get sort of a regular sleep routine. Big targets for me were eating 3 meals a day, getting washed, like every day. These were like big things for me. And so after the 6 weeks, I was sleeping. I was able to, some of you will be familiar with the mirror work exercise, which is one of my favorite tasks. But by the end of the 6 weeks of doing that, I wasn't crying anymore when I looked at myself in the mirror. But for 6 weeks, literally, it was just tears every single time. I couldn't look at myself. And so by the end of the 6 weeks, I had made some really good friends. I had a marvelous accountability partner who I was able to be honest with. And I signed up straight away for the next course, Unlock Your Full Potential. And I applied for WCA, which I did not think, I'd never done an interview other than I did one interview in my whole life. And that was when I was 21, just out of my first degree. And I went, it was a horrific experience. It was with Nestle. And I think I came bottom of that interview process, and I never did another interview again. I always got jobs from recommendations. And so that interview for WCA was terrifying for me when I had the thought of actually having to speak to somebody and do that interview. But I did the first interview with Toma, and obviously Toma was lovely, and I got through, and I got Alice on my second interview. And Alice was not sure. And I thought, I'm going to have to basically beg her if I really want this. And that's exactly what I did. And she went, okay, I'll take a chance on you. Because I knew that if I didn't take that next step to make that final commitment of all in, then I was going back to where I was. And that choice was just to commit suicide at that point. I couldn't go backwards. I had to go forwards. So I did WCA, and my task from WCA, my QLA goal, was to learn to love myself. That literally was it, was learn to love myself. And so I left Thailand, and on the way back, I found a book on Ikigai, your purpose in life. So I went into WH Smith and I bought the book. Well, went to buy the book, and they said to me, no, there's actually a special offer on, go back. I never take special offers, never have. But this time I went, okay, I'll go and have a look. And I bought The 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty.
Yeah.
And little by little, I got to know myself.
Yeah. Through
the 8 Rules of Love. It's been a very long road back. And I now can say that I do love myself and I love what I'm doing. I retrained as a life coach, but I did my speciality was self-love. So it's been a very, very long journey back. But the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because I know that what I was doing was externalizing everything. So I lost myself and was relying entirely on other people. But because I isolated myself as well, I really had very little other than my children to actually gain any value from. And so as I've come to learn, I basically was abusing myself the entire time. I was chipping away at everything. And I didn't realize that by externalizing, having the career and everything else, I didn't know what I wanted, basically. I didn't know what I liked, what I didn't like. Everybody else told me what I liked and didn't like. I would sway with the wind. I was like bamboo. Whatever anybody else wanted to do, I did. And I never ever said what I wanted, what I liked. And so that's what I've learned over the process. So for me, the most important thing about your relationship with yourself is that you can have trust in yourself. You can have confidence in yourself. You gain self-worth. You gain joy. You gain peace when you love yourself. And you're able to be self-compassionate and care for yourself. And as I've come to learn, the most important thing in a relationship, whether it be with yourself or anybody else, is that you have that in yourself first. You have to have all of those things to really have a true relationship with any other individual. So how can we actually tell if there's something wrong with our relationship with ourselves? So there's a little exercise that I'd like to take you through, which is a self-awareness check-in. And all it is a series of questions, which you just answer yes or no to. And you can do that, you know, on a notepad or write it down, whatever. You don't have to disclose it to the rest of us. But I'd like to take you through that now, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay. So question 1 is, do you find yourself constantly putting yourself down, even for minor mistakes? Question 2, do you feel lonely or isolated, even if surrounded by others? Question 3, do you have difficulty making decisions, feel lost, or don't know what your purpose is in life? Question 4, do you frequently experience stress, anxiety, burnout, low moods, or overwhelm? 5, do you constantly seek external validation or rely on others' approval to feel good about yourself? Now, this one, think about in all the different areas of your life. So work, if you're, doing any courses, friends and family and relationships. 6, do you have difficulty setting healthy boundaries? Do you have people-pleasing behaviours? So neglecting your own needs to please others. Question 7, do you neglect your physical or mental health? Do you engage in unhealthy habits? These could be overeating, undereating, irregular meal times, neglecting sleep, or avoiding social interactions. Number 8, do you engage in self-destructive behaviours? This could be excessive alcohol or gambling, any other addictions, risky activities, self-harm, over-shopping. 9, are you neglecting personal passions, hobbies, or your purpose? 10, do you constantly compare yourself to other people, what they have achieved and the things that they have? 11, do you feel the need to fill every minute of the day? Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do is just acknowledge like your observations on that check-in. And then if there are like one or two that are more distinctive, I'd like you to look at those, because later on, I'm actually going to offer you a 2-hour free one-to-one coaching session so that we could actually work on those, that you'd have a plan to go ahead and implement, and look at like the beliefs and things that are behind that and implement a plan to actually solve those problems. Okay. So how can we actually overcome those problems? Well, I'm going to suggest to you 5 different things that I've found useful myself. Okay, so the first one is to actually stop abusing yourself. Now, I know that sounds silly, but what I mean by that is most of us in the modern world actually do abuse ourselves in terms of our sleep, our nutrition, and our hydration. So if you think about your own children or somebody else's children, or if you were to have children, would you expect their parents to put them to bed on time? If they're being good parents, would you expect them to feed them 3 meals a day and to give them drinks at regular intervals? Well, I think we could all agree that probably the answer is yes. And if they weren't doing that, we'd consider that to be abuse. So why is it acceptable to do that to ourselves? So I think we have to change our perspective and actually look at, because we're always busy, busy, busy. But in actual fact, we're abusing ourselves, because each time we actually don't have a meal, or we don't drink, we don't go to bed on time, we're actually telling ourselves we're not worth it. And this is the thing that we often forget in the modern world, because we don't take time to actually consider the ramifications of everything we do, because we're so busy. And that was one of the most important things that I came to learn, was that was what I was doing to myself. The second is mirror work, which I know that Christopher and Sharon are familiar with. I'm not sure if Stephanie and Kathleen are, because I haven't met Kathleen or Stephanie before. Are you familiar, Kathleen, with mirror work?
Yes, I do it every
You
night.
are.
Mhm.
Good. Stephanie, I don't know if Stephanie can speak or not. You're not. Okay. So for mirror work, Stephanie, basically what you do is you stand in front of the mirror. The reason that I particularly like this one is because I'd stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I just found myself so, well, disgusting would be about the only word. I could say I just didn't look in a mirror. And so it's a big thing to do the mirror work. Well, it was for me, it was a big thing. But you just stand in front of the mirror and you say your name. So if I just do like an example, I'll do an run through in a second for you, Stephanie. But you say your name first of all, and then you actually start to talk to yourself whilst looking in your eyes. And you tell yourself only the things that are good things that you've done in that day. So you appreciate yourself by telling yourself what achievements you have had in that day, what disciplines you kept to, and what temptations you avoided. And then after you have done that, you actually then look at yourself in the eyes again and say, I love you. In my case, it will be Fiona. And then you carry on looking into your eyes for about 30 seconds to a minute afterwards. And at that point, there may be tears, there may be laughter, there could be all sorts of reactions, but you just keep looking at yourself in your eyes and appreciate yourself. So if I gave you an example, so I would say, Fiona, I really appreciate that this morning, despite being very tired, you managed to get up and carry out all of your tasks for the day. You ate 3 meals. And let me think what else I did today. And you have cleaned the whole house, which is a major achievement for me and to get my work done. And then I would simply say, I love you, Fiona. And I won't look at myself for a whole minute in the camera, but that's what I would do normally. The third thing that I really like to do is it's actually from Jay Shetty. And it shows you really whether you do like spending time with yourself or not. And it's called a solo audit. And basically what you do is for 1 week, you write a chart down, which has got time, activity, comfortable and uncomfortable, and then why. And what you'll do for that week is each day you will write down the time you actually spend on your own, doing activities on your own. Now, this cannot include watching the TV, sleeping, or scrolling through your phone. It actually has to be a legitimate task that you're doing. So it could be cooking, it could be, I don't know, you might go to the gym, whatever you do alone, but you write those down and you write down whether you feel comfortable or uncomfortable. So that really gives you a good picture of whether you potentially like being with yourself or not. Because if you're spending no time on your own, you really need to look at why that is. Following on from that, you then start a process of self-dating, which is one that I particularly enjoyed. And self-dating, you will choose one task per week for a month. And the task has to be performed on your own. And it is a task that you wouldn't normally do. So for example, if you wouldn't normally go to a restaurant on your own, go to the restaurant on your own, but you're not allowed your telephone. Okay, go to a museum, an art gallery, or you could go to a birthday party on your own. So any task that you would normally do with another person, try it on your own. And then you write down or answer some questions once you get back. And those questions are, how long did it take to feel comfortable in that what will be an uncomfortable situation for you? How different would it be if you were with another person? Are you better able to enjoy yourself alone? That one was a very interesting one because I found that when I went to the cinema, it was freeing to go on my own. I'd never been on my own, but it's amazing how you I took on everybody else's opinions. So I was able to actually form my own opinions. So for me, that was incredibly liberating to do that one. Is it hard to know what to do with yourself? It's another question to ask yourself. And would your opinion about the activity be influenced by a companion's reaction? What do you love about the experience? And what are the pros and cons of being by yourself? The reason I love these two tasks is it brings a great deal of awareness to you about how your relationship is with yourself when you actually start doing these things. And the other thing it does is that you get to know what you like and don't like. And then you can get to really change your relationship with yourself. So you can actually start to fall in love with yourself. And the final thing that I really like to do is to write down one new thing per day that I like or don't like. It doesn't have to be about myself. It's just an observation of something that I like or don't like. It can be an opinion. It can be, like a particular research method. It could be anything at all. And then the second thing I like to write down is what I'm proud of that I've done. And that was a big thing for me because Liam, who some of you will know, had to teach me what pride was. I had no idea what being proud of someone was. And he is my accountability partner for writing those things too. And that is a liberating thing, actually, being accountable for that, because it keeps you moving forwards in your relationship. Because as you all know, to have any successful relationship with a friend, a partner, or yourself, you have to keep working at it. It's important to do these types of things on a regular basis and literally schedule them into your life if you want to maintain your relationship with yourself. So, do you have any questions for me? If you're unable to come on camera to speak, you can always, I think Sunchu has a question. You can always go on, write in the chat. We can't hear you, Sunchu. You're on mute.
That would be nice. So you mentioned a lot about, the self-love. We have to love ourselves before we can love someone else. And that, how do you translate that into like when you're helping people in business? Because I know that you've very successful and like schedule overbook every day with working with so many people, and with what you share in your history of your loving yourself, your personal history, that's amazing. So how did you translate that over into like help and the business part of it when you're helping with people?
In terms of how do I translate mine,
Yeah, like loving yourself
how
and
do I keep my, yeah,
right, and because you're able to work with a lot of people now, but
yes,
you have to come, you overcame so much. So like, how did you translate all of that,
yeah.
over?
Mm-hmm. So when so from my business point of view, I actually made a conscious decision in my business to actually dedicate 50% of my time to actually my self-development and self-love practices. So that informs the actual business, but it also, more importantly, keeps me in alignment, not just for this, but for global projects, because I also have a global project, which is I would like to teach every single individual on the planet how to love themselves, because I believe that this will actually help people live in harmony if everybody is able to love themselves, because basically the externalization of your sort of emotions, your thoughts, your anger is because you don't love yourself. You actually come to a place of calmness when you truly love yourself. And so if we're able to heal every single individual's relationship with themselves, it immediately makes the planet be able to work together in harmony. So that's ultimately what I'd like my goal. So this is why I've designed that. And obviously, I'm also practicing that within like the work that I do with each of the clients as well. And the clients for me also help me develop, is the other interesting thing, because their points of view and differences in their ideas, etc., allow me to grow and to question myself and to question my ideas. Does that answer your
Oh,
question?
yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
And then,
Mhm.
like, so I guess when people are struggling in their business, or like you said earlier, when you're comparing yourself with other people,
Mhm.
does that come back to them not being able to function properly when growing their business because the self-love is not there?
No, I don't think it does. Can you just repeat the question again
Oh,
so I can
so
maybe
you
give you a
know how like
proper question, a proper answer
yeah,
back?
so
Yeah.
I'm just reference the
Yeah.
the internal person, as we have to love ourselves, and I'm just
Mhm.
transferring that
Yes.
over to like on the business part of it, that a
Yes.
lot of people are struggling with their business, growing their business, how to thrive in
Mhm.
it. But does that all comes down back to that one does not love themselves enough to understand the different parts
Mhm.
of what you
Okay.
mentioned?
Right. Yeah. So I think that sometimes it can come down to when you're struggling in business, it can come down to that because often there are mindsets that need to change when we're struggling in business. Sometimes there's a mindset block, which can relate back to something to do with your relationship with self. Because often we hold ourselves back because we're frightened of things. And we're generally frightened of things because we have some kind of issue or there's sometimes conflict, like in what we want and what we actually do. So we have to like look back and track that back, I think, to see exactly where it's coming from. And
Mm.
often people haven't considered in their business whether they're in alignment with their business. It actually takes a lot of work, as you'll know, to actually become in alignment in your personal life and your business life. And often there's conflicts between those two things. So you really have to consider in any small business, like exactly that you're going to actually be in alignment with everything. Because if you want a particular thing, but you're doing something different, you're never going to be happy in your relationship with yourself, in your relationship or your personal relationships or your relationships in your business.
Mm. So, in another word, I still got some work to do. As great as I am doing my business, I feel that sometimes I do find myself, do certain things, and then what you're saying made me realize that I need to have a good relationship with myself. This way I can, work through these challenges that relates to these things that makes me trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the more you develop your relationship with yourself, the easier it gets to spot the things that are potentially off course. Because the more you understand yourself, the more you realize, actually, that's not what I want in this part of my life. There's something wrong. And sometimes it takes you a little bit of time to work it out, but it's almost like your intuition knocks on your sort of taps on your shoulder or something and says, like, wake up, you know,
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so
my
Fiona, if
pleasure.
I may speak,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing like your waterfalls of wisdom. And I really like how you were talking about healthy boundaries
Mhm.
for yourself and for others. And it kind of intertwines with what Sunshu was saying, and then obviously everything that you've been mentioning throughout our time together. So I have struggled with those healthy boundaries and then people pleasing. So I just want to commend you on beginning to speak about that. And I think that that is an important topic for everyone to dig deep, go in with
Mhm.
on those boundaries.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your comments, Sharon. But I think you're entirely correct. It is a difficult balance, and when we're so busy to keep those health boundaries on track. So we have to incorporate it into our life. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for all listening. It's been my pleasure to speak with you. So, as I said during our call, so I am offering a one-to-one session, a 2-hour one-to-one session, which I shall just drop the link in the chat for you. That you can go on and you can book. I've set aside the weekends because I thought that might be the most convenient for everybody. However, If it's not, then you can also just email me, which I shall also pop in the chat, and we can arrange another time. But it's a free session for all of you, if you would like to take part. And in that, we can discuss your 1 to 2 things that you identified, and we can put together a plan so you can move forward and implement things in your life so that you can actually develop your relationship with yourself at a faster pace. The other thing that I've also developed for Red Women is I'd like to offer free scholarships, which are 1-to-1, 6 1-to-1 sessions to actually get that journey started faster. And those sessions, or those 3 scholarships, I should say, will basically be on a first come, first serve basis. So that's everything for today. I hope that has helped you all. And I look forward to hearing any progress that you do make in your relationship with yourself.